Hey, it's Larry. Welcome to Stewarding the Wealth Transfer. I hope you're having a great weekend. I thought I'd come back and talk about three different T's: transition, taxes, and trust. And I'm seeing a buzz, and some of my friends are even really talking to me and trying to tell me, Larry, you need to have trust. And this is not, this is my perspective as a 30 plus year business guy. And I've read a lot about business, and here's my strongest argument against trust. I've never met somebody worth over $10 million that even talked about it. I only see people who think they're going to be worth a lot and they talk about it. I don't know one person who I'd consider highly financially successful that's ever mentioned them to me. And I've had scores of conversations with financial conversations with all kinds of people. And I've read hundreds of books, and I have no desire to have a trust. Now, to have an entity, absolutely. To have a will, for sure. But a trust is a control mechanism for giving money to somebody when you don't think they know how to handle money. And when you have a trust, if you have a child that is unable cognitively or physically to handle money, then I do think a trust is a valid thing. If you have normal children with normal capacities, I don't know why you want to have a trust. And I think the reason that people want to do that is because they think, oh, they're going to save so much in taxes. Well, I don't think the way that our tax structure is constitutional, and I do a lot of things to not pay taxes. I don't buy cars. My companies buy cars. I have three companies right now. My truck, I was able to take, it's called an accelerated 179, but I get to depreciate the whole cost of the truck in 1 year. And, I only buy a new truck every 12 or 15 years. And so, last year I bought one. I took an accelerated depreciation on it. I do all kinds of things with my company, and it saves me a ton of money in taxes, because when you make a lot of money, then you want to do that. I don't know anybody who makes a lot of money that worries about trust. All the rich people that I know, they don't care about trust. And the reason I think they don't, I can only speak from my own perspective. I think of trust as control mechanisms that control and limit me. And the thing is, you have to use professionals. And here's the ideas that I conjure up, and I'm going to say, things that could be taken offensively. And two of my best pieces of financial advice are: I can't afford the cheapest, and secondly, I don't take any advice from anybody that's worth less than me, because if they're worth a lot less than me, they must not know as much as I do about some things. Now, that sounds really arrogant, but it's generally proved pretty true, because most people who haven't made over $1 million a year don't know what it's like to pay that kind of taxes. And so then I don't really care about what their tax advice are, because they haven't paid a lot of taxes. And I'm telling you, I think it's stupid for people to get trust, because unless you have a handicapped child or somebody who needs distribute. But the thing is, my legal people are usually smarter than me, and so that means they're usually older than me. And now when you get as old as I am, that means they're all retiring. So what kind of wisdom are you going to be tied into who's going to control these funds? Because if you don't have somebody smart, but anybody smart that works by the hour is going to be charging so much money. And then, the tax structure, I'm talking about paying the taxes. The bad thing about having entities, I have three different entities. They all cost $1,000 plus for taxes, up to $4,000 a year. And I actually think that's a pretty good deal. So, my taxes end up costing 10 grand without even giving any money to the government, because I have three different entities. And I don't think that trusts necessarily cost you money, but they do restrict you. So if you're struggling and you think that, somebody's trying to talk you into paying $3,000 or $4,000 to create a trust so that you can save a bunch of money in taxes. Let me tell you from my personal perspective, spend the money on the XRP and then deal with the taxes later. And now, why, Larry, would you think that? Because Donald Trump is saying crazy things about taxes. He's telling waitresses, hey, you won't have to pay taxes on tips. Do you think that's fair? I think that's a great idea. I think that's amazing. I think what that means is that the tax structure is going to change. I totally believe that Donald Trump is telling the truth in that regard. And do I think that just because I have to pay a lot of taxes that I'm not going to get a significant break as well? It's going to be an equitable tax, and I actually believe we're moving towards a VAT tax. I don't think that a constitutional tax allows an income tax, but that gets back to the transitional time that we're in. I don't think things are going to stay the same, and I think people literally are crazy. People could easily say, Larry, you're crazy. Here's the thing. In my lifetime, which is now 61 years, of all of human existence, and as a conservative, I think that the Jewish calendar is the number of years since the time of Adam, and you may think that man has been around for 100 million years or whatever. I don't think so, but I think that the Jewish calendar is, we're approaching like 5,800 years. So let's just say 6,000 years ago man was created. Of those 6,000 years, or of the 10,000, or of the 100,000 years that man has been on the earth, it's always been commodity backed, except for the time of my life, when in 1971 Richard Nixon said, hey, we're going off the gold standard, and our gut money is going to be backed. It's going to become a petrodollar, and so we're quasi commodity backed, but it was backed by the faith and integrity of the United States government. Well, so for all of history, which is this big, and now we've got my lifetime in all of history, which is, should be a way smaller circle than that. That's the only time we've had all the countries in the world being fiat. And you think that the way that it's been in your lifetime, if you're younger than me, is the way that it's going to be for the rest of your lifetime? I think you're crazy. I mean, we have trillions upon trillions of dollars in debt in our country, and you think that the dollar as it exists is going to hold it out? And I don't think the dollar is the weakest currency. I think the dollar is one of the strongest because we have one of the best economies. We have horrible leadership, but I mean, we're in a time of transition. Things are going to change. Our taxes are going to change because Trump, I'm sure, is going to win. Feel like God's told me that. I've had visions, I've had dreams, other people confirm that. So I'm not one bit worried about Kamala, being a challenge to the presidency. I am concerned about different things. I think we're heading into a very, pandemonium is an interesting word. I think that we're seeing more and more of that. But I believe our taxes are going to change. I don't think trusts are a big deal. And this transition is going to be transition in government, transition in taxes, transition in currency, transition in commodities, transition in work. 10 years ago, people worked in offices. Now they don't. Things transition. We're in a time of transition. And I think very few people understand what time it is. And it's interesting how in the Old Testament, the people of the tribe of Issachar knew the times and the seasons, and they were able to adjust. And I just want to encourage you to realize, in my opinion, fiat currency is going down. I think everything about government and justice and even our education system is just horrible. And I think that God is going to bring down the systems that are corrupt. And I think that we're in a time of transition. And so I would encourage you to, if you have extra, to not have it in traditional fiat-backed systems where it can be taken away from you. You're not the custodian. You can't control it. And I do believe, even though this wealth transfer is taking longer than I thought, I do believe in it. Here's one of the reasons I don't like trust. And I'm just going to be honest, I don't want to come across like I always have a firm opinion on everything. I have two adult children, both married, and I'm still waiting to see if they want to come and work. But if they both came and worked, then I would split it mostly evenly. But I don't feel that I'm obligated morally to give an equal amount to each kid. When you do a trust, you're determining at a certain point in time what monies are going to be given. And I know there's all these different ways to change it, but let me tell you what I do know. After spending tens of thousands and probably near $100,000 on attorneys over my life, they always cost tons of money. And if you do this kind of stuff for free, the few kinds of times I've done complicated things by myself that I should have had professional help. One time I bought 20 acres and I needed an easement, so I knew I wasn't landlocked, but I provided the easement on 10 acres, but I didn't want to pay an engineer or a surveyor, really a surveyor, to draw it. So I did it the way that I understood how to do it. And I almost lost the sale of this 10 acres, which honestly was the first piece of land I ever owned. So it was really stupid. I just didn't have any money. I didn't know what I was doing. And I learned time and time again, I can't afford the cheapest. Every time I use the cheapest person or the cheapest service, it's just horrible. It breaks. So I always buy good equipment. I buy good trucks. I like to hire good people. I don't like to have the cheapest. And so if you're using a trust and you're getting bad advice, you could, in my experience, not even my opinion, my experience, when you do it yourself and you don't know what you're doing, you are asking for so much trouble. So just don't do that. And if you get to pay some taxes because you get to make $50 million, I don't know what that's like. I'm looking forward to finding out, but good for you. You get to pay a bunch of taxes if nothing changed. But the thing is, we're in a time of transition. I don't think taxes are going to stay the same. Donald Trump's talking about waitresses not having to pay taxes on tips. I don't see why your taxes are going to stay the same. If her taxes change, or him, whoever the waitress is, waiter, waitress, our taxes are going to change as well. Things are not going to stay the same. We're in a time of transition. If you look at Project 2025, which the left absolutely hates, all the people that Donald Trump is working with, including Vance, who is the VP, the current VP person. The Trump team is very supportive of Project 2025. The left absolutely hates it. And when you read about what they want to do with the Treasury and taxes, they mention that the IRS is not a government entity. They address every legit government entity. And the two that you would think that they don't address are the Federal Reserve and the IRS, because either one of those are government entities. They both have a .gov domain for email and stuff, but they're privately held, and that's just true. So Project 2025, every other governmental entity, they make recommendations what they're going to do. Some, like the Department of Education, they say we want to end it. We think that states should influence and control education. I totally agree with that. I don't think you're going to disagree with Project 2025, but the reason I say it is that is the closest thing to Trump's policy, which, Trump puts it out, he outlines it, Kamala doesn't. But, that's a 1,000-page document almost of what a wise person would do to come back to a constitutional government. And they don't talk about keeping taxes the same. They don't even acknowledge the IRS. And yet people think the IRS is going to exist, and so they're willing to spend thousands of dollars now, or worse yet, they create a legal entity of a trust, and I'm sure you could do it for $30 or $300. It would be the stupidest thing you could do if you create a legally binding document and you don't know how to unwind it. I just think it's an absolute nightmare. Take the hundreds or the thousands and buy XRP. Wait, as the economy is starting to really implode, watch it continue to implode, and it's going to be a better and better time. A lot of my crypto money is sitting on the sidelines right now because I'm ready to jump in. So we're at a time of transition. I think we're headed, and Project 2025 talks about precious metal backed currency. Our Constitution only allows silver and gold backed currency. I don't think we're going to have silver half dollars or dollars and gold, $20 gold pieces anymore. Because people would take pocket knives and nippers and collect the gold, but we are going to have the equivalent of that, and I think it could be digital, and that doesn't bother me. So we're going to head back towards constitutional money. We're in a time of transition. So those are my ideas. So don't get wound up about your taxes. Pay the little bit of taxes you have to pay, and make investments, and be like the other multimillionaires that I know. None of them are worried about trust unless they've got a special needs family member, or if they're on their deathbed. Then you do need to, in the last year of your life, you do need to make plans. But I'm not smart enough to know in the 10 to 35 years from now when I die what percentage I should give to each kid. One of the strategies that I have is I want to lend money to my kids, and I don't want to dump a whole bunch of money onto my kids without them ever having handled large amounts of money. I mean, we think of in cash like 200,000 as so much money, but you can't even buy a house for that. And so I think that people are going to have to get used to, during this wealth transfer, handling hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars, and you need to learn that over time and as it comes along. And so I plan on my kids saying, "Hey, Dad, there's a house in the neighborhood that I think is worth 400,000, but it's down to 275. What do you think about it?" And then I would say, "Yeah, I would like to lend you the money for that. Let's do it like this." And I don't know, what, and that may be way beyond where you're at, but I'm gonna leave a good inheritance, a godly inheritance to each of my kids. You may have the idea that it's biblical to only to split it 50-50, but that's a Western current mindset, and that's not a biblical mindset, because they prioritize the oldest male, vastly prioritize the oldest male. And I think many people died so poor there was nothing to pass on. So I don't think that you have to leave an equal amount of money for each kid. I think it depends on how they respond, how responsible they are, which one is taking on the family business, if there's a family business. So, in this time of transition, don't assume that taxes are going to stay the same. Kim Clement never gave any guidance or advice to do fancy tax schemes to avoid taxes or to create loopholes. I don't feel bad as a business person to use common, even aggressive tax tactics, but trusts are not a part of my future, and I would encourage you to, not necessarily make them a part of yours. So, my opinion. If you have different views, please put them in the comments, and as long as they're nice, I don't mind if you differ wildly from what I think. So have a good one. Thanks for your time.